the claim that trans ideology makes and trans activists make is that if I say the words, I am a woman, I am now female. That is the claim.
So I may be arguing for the wrong thing. And so if they're saying that saying it means that you suddenly have a vagina.
Well, that's what self-identification means. I identify as a woman means I feel feminine. Therefore, the fact that I have a penis doesn't matter because my feelings overrule the biological reality.
Is that really what you're saying?
Yes, and I'm there.
But hold on, how do they explain the penis?
It's a female penis.
Okay, so...
It's a female penis.
Great.
Suck it. That's what they want. Suck the female penis.
Fair. Now, I will say that that's what I'm getting at is we have to...
I had to do that.
No, it's
too funny.
Too funny to pass up. As a fan of comedy, I'm here for it. But that begs the point that I'm trying to make, which is we have to differentiate between this human is male, female, which I think because for all of human history, that's what we've called it. Let's just stick with that. And so we need a new thing that's like, I feel like, I believe I have the internal brain structure. That's probably very misleading because I could scan your brain to see it's not true. I have the internal
feelings,
brain makeup, because it will be, I think, hypothesis.
Much better to say I feel. Then
we're going to get to the I feel part, but I have a feeling that the I feel part is nudged by that 20-sided dice. That some people, were we able to truly just map all the confluence of things that make you feel masculine and feminine, just like my wife, there's something about her from the time she was a little kid, she was tomboyish. So it's like, she's got a thing that just like predisposes her to being a little bit aggressive, not being as emotional. I know some people are going to freak out about that, but my wife is very, not as emotionally sober as me, which she will be the first to tell you, but way more emotionally sober than somebody else that falls more typically on the feminine spectrum. Jesus, this is why we need words for this. So,
well, this is why simplicity solves this. I
don't think it does.
It really does.
I'm going to listen.
Okay.
Tell me.
Look, maybe I'm not letting you talk, but let's come back to the female penis.
I love you so much. Talking to you about this is amazing. You've given me all the space. I just want to make sure that I understand where you're coming from.
So the trans ideology claim, the trans activist claim, is that self-identification is how you know whether someone is female or male. Self-identification means abracadabra Stacy. Having uttered the incantation, I am a woman, I become Stacy. Okay?
Yes.
And therefore, I am entitled to be treated in our society the way a woman is treated. I am entitled to be housed in a female prison. I am entitled to go into a female changing room. I am entitled to compete in female sports. I am entitled to be treated as a woman because I am a woman. That is completely outrageous and unacceptable. If the claim were, I am male, but I feel that I have a set of behaviors that our society conventionally associates with females, and I therefore wish to wear a dress, wish to have my hair long, wish to wear makeup, wish to paint my fingernails, wish to change the way I speak, wish to dress in a way that most women do. Cool. Go do it. Be you. But the moment you make the claim that you are a woman, you are making a claim, A, a truth claim that isn't true, and B, a claim that entitles you to the certain protections that we've allocated to women in our society, which you're not entitled to by virtue of the fact that you're not female. Does that work as a starting basis for this conversation?
It works as a starting basis for this conversation. I'm going to steel man everything you said because that is as I understand it. And I think that there is a demarcation point that we have to draw that I think ultimately, I won't prognosticate about where we end up. So I'm going to steel man the argument. Let me know if I missed anything. So a trans activist would say that the thing that makes me male or female is the way that I feel. And if I, regardless of whether I have the genitalia of a male, if I feel female and I say that I'm female, then I I am a woman. If I feel like a woman and I say I'm a woman, I am a woman. And therefore, you should treat me and give me all the protections that a woman would get. So spaces that are reserved for women, I should have access to that. Prisons that are reserved for women, I should have access to that. Sports, I should be able to play in sports and compete against other females. Have I understood the argument?
Yes.
Okay. So operating from that, and I will say, I'm talking to everybody now. Like, hey, everybody that wants to have this conversation, there is a conversation to be had, but you really have to begin to break these things apart. Now, given what you just said, I think there's going to be a bone of contention. Here's how I feel, that on the trans activist side, there is a refusal. They've created a category, maybe. So what I was going to say is, from the trans activist side, there's a refusal to create a category for people that are in alignment, both with the physical sex of their body and their feelings.
No, they call those cis. Yes.
Yeah, so that's why I stopped myself. So what they are perhaps not being intellectually honest about how we need to categorize things. So let me walk through this. The way that I would want to have a productive conversation is everything in its category, so that we may then talk honestly about the consequences, the second and third order consequences of these categorizations. So one, I'm introducing a new thing to the argument, because even if I'm willing to adopt cis, which I'm not, there's something about that makes me feel manipulated, because they're trying to co-opt something that's existed for so long. I'm totally cool for introducing a new category. There's something that I haven't thought through about why I don't like the co-opting of something old. That feels sleight of hand. So I'm going to set that aside for a second. So I'm introducing a new idea to this discussion, or trying to, which is that I think that there is something to be said about being nudged. And there's a malleability in here. And if we're not being honest about the malleability, we won't understand why it's important to get the categorization right. Because I'm saying that there is once we say, okay, the biology is pretty clear, you're either male or female. And yeah, look, some things in the margins, pretty fascinating, but so marginal for people that have both a penis and a vagina, which does happen. Crazy, but true. Setting that aside for a second, everything about the brain does feel like it's A, hyperfragmented, and B, that everything's a spectrum, which is why I've always considered myself to have a slightly more feminine temperament. My wife has a slightly more masculine temperament. And that is one of the reasons that our marriage is so good. And when I give marriage advice to people, I always feel a little bad, because I'm like, well, if your wife is hyper feminine and you're hyper masculine, this is all going to be a fucking nightmare. And good luck, because you guys, one of you really is from Mars and the other really is from fucking Venus, and you're alien species. And goddamn, you can raise kids, but holy hell, like the two of you trying to like really be each other's soulmates and get all the things that I'm telling you you're going to get, probably not so much.
Don't know. That's been exactly my experience.
Yes, but are you hyper masculine?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Then it can work out.
He's calling out my masculinity right on camera. Unbelievable.
Because I have an internal definition of hypermasculine of the Jocko Willink is hypermasculine.
Yeah, but
and if he's able to do it, then word.
Being masculine isn't about having muscles, but anyway, it's not.
Can we agree that there is a category of human that I call a pub brawler in the UK? And
Yes.
You can take one look at that motherfucker and be like, oh, I know a lot about you based on the shape of your head.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just saying there really are things that manifest physically that like...
You've defined masculinity in a very narrow way.
I haven't defined masculinity. I have not made any attempt to define masculinity yet.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Other than I have earlier said...
big cans of
God,
worms.
I know. If viewers are having as much fun listening as I am talking, we'll keep going.
Cool.
Okay, so I'm trying to introduce this idea of nudgeability. We are malleable. We are shapeable. You can sway somebody. My wife has made me more masculine over time because she's actually more into that. She probably takes for granted the part of me that's hyper communicative and in touch with my emotions and able to admit my insecurities. She probably just takes it for granted. But honestly, there was a time in our relationship where she straight said to me, "Your insecurities aren't sexy." And I quote. And I was like, oh, God damn. So I realized, A, that's true. I need to fucking toughen up here, deal with my insecurities, be a bit more manly. And she was way more into that, which she rewarded them with sexual attention. I'm fucking nudgeable. Like, you can encourage me in directions. So anyway, I want nudgeability, malleability, shapeability in here, so that then we have to ask questions. What direction are we going to nudge people? Because you're going to nudge people, whether you mean to or not. And seeing celebrities dress their boys up in dresses, you're nudging them, whether you mean to or not. You're nudging, you're shoving them. So, but hey, Bilyue and trucks and all that, one could argue, is not nudging, is shoving. Whatever. But let's have that on the table. Okay, so if we are somewhat malleable, but trying to push somebody all the way in a direction ends in fucking disaster. I forget the kid's name. The set of twins, born, circumcised, the circumcision machine burns his penis off. I think his name was David, or his code name was David.
Yes.
And do you remember the...
John Money's the guy who did it.
Thank you. And so he said, oh, doesn't matter. Blank slate, raise him as your daughter. It's going to be fine. He'll never know. And of course, ends up committing suicide. His brother commits suicide. Fucking crazy
And
stuff.
John Money was a pedophile.
Lovely. If that's written and taken out of context, I'm kidding. That's obviously horrifying. There are limits to how far we can nudge them. We need the categories. We need to understand where people are going to fall, so that we are very open and honest about, yeah, you can push people in a direction. There will be second and third order consequences. You need to really be thoughtful about what that is. And when in doubt, I would say, looking at history to find a way of something that has worked, not perfectly, but reasonably well, would be probably the place to start with that. I'm going to pause there. I don't know that
Tom,
I'm finished. But
let me say a couple
Yeah,
of things
please.
at this juncture. I love you. I really look up to you. I learn a hell of a lot from you. I really admire you, and I have no fucking idea what you're talking about.
Okay. Because I need to simplify.
I don't
Yes?
think you're addressing the argument that I'm making is the reason I have no idea what you're talking
Well,
about.
so we'll get to that.
Okay.
So I'll get to that now, and then maybe we'll circle back.
Okay.
Okay, so...
Remind me about masculinity as well, because there's something to say on that.
Okay. Should a biological male have access to female spaces? Would that be a direct...
That's part of the conversation, yeah.
So to me, the obvious answer is no.
Let's go up a level. Is the truth claim that I am Stacy accurate? What would I have to do to become Stacy, in your opinion?
Tell me to call you Stacy. But that's why we have to differentiate between you feel like Stacy.
What would I have to do to be female in your eyes?
That's why we need a new category, because I'm perfectly willing to say that there is such a thing as, I already know that the community has completely rejected this idea. As a neophyte, I would have said, oh, trans woman. Like, that works. I get
I
it.
have suggested that as an idea.
Yeah. So for me, if that didn't have baggage, that would be, yeah, perfect. You're Stacy, the trans woman. I'm totally here for that.
I'm here for that too, but nobody's willing to go with that.
I have a feeling that that probably represents the mainstream belief, but it's just very difficult to have this conversation.
Okay.
That's a guess. I
Okay,
could be
fine.
wrong.
So if I am a trans woman, am I entitled to go in a female bathroom or compete in female sports?
Bathrooms, I don't have a read on, because that one feels like it gets complicated very fast. I have not thought through that. I don't know, but for sure, not in female sports.
Okay, cool. I agree.
And I would say anywhere where you're going to be naked, not.
Right. So,
Any prison where there's massive vulnerability, not.
yeah. So you basically believe that people should be called by the name that they wish to be called by. In an ideal world, we would have a category that describes them as not being the sex in which they were born, right?
Yeah, I'm going to create a mental map of you
Yeah.
based on my experience with you and what you tell me is true. And so if you really, like, the first transgender person that I met, that I knowingly met, I was so surprised, because I expected, and people forgive me, and I'm showing my age and all of that, but when I met somebody who was transgender for the first time, I didn't know transgender was a thing. I knew that transsexual was a thing, but I thought of them as like campy and over the top. And so I was expecting a drag queen. And I met this really like casual, down home, hair down, straight, no makeup, like woman who, trans woman, who I was just like, oh, wow. Like I immediately updated my mental map of what that could be and was like, oh, I literally had no idea. So yeah, I was like, cool. My mental map of you is now that. Now she had not had her penis removed. So I was like, word, like mental map is that you are a male who feels entirely feminine.
Well, that's where we started with me saying that. Feels like.
Yeah. But so where the line that I was trying to draw is, I think there's a reason for that occurs in the brain. And this is where the conversation to me just like completely derails, is everybody is so talking as if they can't understand that there's another category. Now, I may just be so new to this conversation that people have already had this and that everyone's just going to completely reject the idea of that new category. And in which case, then I'm at a loss, and I'm not trying to convince anybody.
Look, if the trans ideology and trans activists said, we would like to be called trans women and trans men to reflect the fact that we are of a certain biological sex, but we want to present to the world as the opposite of that. I actually don't think anybody would have a problem with that beyond the specific narrow context which we've discussed. We wouldn't be having this conversation if that was acceptable to people at all.
Yep.
Can we come back to masculinity?
Yeah, please.
Because I think this is very interesting. I was once at a dinner, a small dinner, it was about 12 of us maybe, with Jordan Peterson. And I asked him...